What happens when someone admits on live television that everything they've been told is a lie, and the entire studio freezes? Dr. Phil, I need to tell you something. Nobody told me the whole truth. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Dr. Phil's hand stopped mid-gesture. The cameras kept rolling, but everyone knew something had just broken. What happened next would become one of the most powerful moments in daytime television history. It was supposed to be a standard family reconciliation segment. Mother and daughter, estranged for 7 years, brought together to heal old wounds. The pre-interview had been emotional but straightforward. The producers had their story arc mapped out. The audience had their tissues ready. But Sarah Mitchell, sitting in that guest chair under the hot studio lights, had just said the 5 words that would stop everything. I wasn't told the whole truth. 30 seconds earlier, everything had been going according to plan. Dr. Phil had opened the segment with his signature directness. Sarah, you haven't spoken to your mother in 7 years. You've told our producers that she abandoned you when you were 15. That she chose drugs over her own daughter. Is that correct? Sarah nodded, her hands trembling slightly. Yes. That's what I believed all this time. Her mother, Linda, sat in the second guest chair, tears already streaming down her face. The audience leaned forward. This was the moment, the confrontation, the explanation, the path to healing. Dr. Phil turned to Linda. And you're here today to tell your daughter what really happened. To explain why you left. Linda opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, Sarah's voice cut through. Dr. Phil, wait. I need to tell you something first. The tone in her voice made every producer in the control room sit up straight. What is it, Sarah? Dr. Phil's expression shifted. In 17 years of doing this show, he'd learned to read that particular tremor in someone's voice. It wasn't nervousness. It was the sound of truth trying to break through years of lies. My father told me my mother left because she was using drugs. He told me she abandoned us. He told me she never tried to contact me. Sarah's voice was shaking now, but she pushed forward. But 3 months ago, I found letters. Dozens of letters. Hidden in my father's office. The studio went completely silent. Linda's head snapped up, her eyes wide. Letters from your mother? Dr. Phil asked quietly. Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out a worn manila envelope. The camera zoomed in as her hands trembled. Letters, birthday cards, Christmas presents she tried to send. Court documents showing she fought for custody. Receipts for child support payments he told me she never made. Sarah's voice broke. Everything he told me for 7 years was a lie. Dr. Phil stood up. It was a subtle movement, but everyone who'd watched his show knew what it meant. The script had just been thrown out. This wasn't the story they'd prepared for. Hold on. Dr. Phil raised his hand toward the control room. The universal signal to pause, to breathe, to reassess. Sarah, are you telling me that your father deliberately kept you from your mother for 7 years? Yes. The word came out as a whisper, but it echoed through the studio like thunder. Linda collapsed forward in her chair, her entire body shaking with sobs that had been held back for 7 years. Dr. Phil moved between the 2 chairs, his usual confident stance replaced by something more deliberate, more careful. Sarah, when did you find these letters? 3 months ago. I was helping him move offices, and I found a box. He'd kept everything. Every attempt she made to reach me. Every court filing. Every. Her voice shattered completely. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. Dr. Phil turned to his producers off camera. His voice was firm, commanding. Get me the father on the phone. Now. And I want our legal consultant in here. He looked back at the 2 women. We're not doing this the way we planned. We're doing it right. The audience erupted in applause, but Dr. Phil raised his hand again. No. Not yet. We're not celebrating anything yet. We're fixing something that should never have been broken. He pulled his chair directly in front of Sarah. Not the host's position. Not the therapeutic distance. Eye to eye, human to human. Sarah, look at me. What you just did took more courage than most people show in a lifetime. You came here believing one story, and you had the strength to tell the truth even when it meant admitting you'd been lied to by someone you trusted. His voice softened. That's not weakness. That's strength. Sarah's tears were falling freely now, but she nodded. Dr. Phil turned to Linda. And you? 7 years of people thinking you abandoned your daughter. 7 years of trying to reach her and being blocked at every turn. Tell me what that was like. Linda's response would break every heart in that studio. I sent her a letter every week. Every single week for 7 years. Linda's voice was raw, stripped of everything except pain. On her 16th birthday, I sent her a necklace. It had both our birthstones. I never knew if she got it. She didn't, Dr. Phil said quietly. On her high school graduation, I was there. In the back. I couldn't go up to her because of the restraining order he filed, claiming I was dangerous, unstable. I watched my baby walk across that stage, and I couldn't even say congratulations. Sarah made a sound, something between a gasp and a sob. You were there? I was always there, baby. Always. I just couldn't reach you. Dr. Phil stood up and did something he'd never done in 17 years of television. He stopped the show. Cut the cameras. His voice was clear, authoritative. Everyone out. Producers, crew, audience, give us the room. There was a moment of confusion. This wasn't protocol. This wasn't how television worked. I said out. Now. Dr. Phil's tone left no room for argument. These two women need a moment that doesn't belong to television. They need a moment that's just theirs. The control room supervisor's voice came through. Dr. Phil, we're live to tape, we can't just... Watch me. Dr. Phil removed his microphone. Some things are more important than content. Some moments are more sacred than ratings. The crew began to file out. The audience, confused but moved, followed. As the last camera operator reached the door, Dr. Phil called out. Leave one camera. Unmanned. Fixed position. If they want this moment recorded, it'll be their choice. But no operators. No production team. Just let them be. The studio emptied until only 3 people remained, Dr. Phil, Sarah, and Linda. Dr. Phil moved to the edge of the stage. I'm going to step away. I'll be right outside if you need me. But this reunion doesn't need a host. It doesn't need an audience. It just needs a mother and daughter who've lost 7 years. He walked toward the exit, then paused. And Sarah? Those letters your mother wrote? They're yours. Every single one. We're getting you copies of everything before you leave today. That's your history. Nobody gets to take it from you again. What happened in that empty studio would never fully air. Some moments are too sacred even for television. But through the unmanned camera's fixed lens, viewers would later see 2 figures moving toward each other. Slowly at first, then faster. The moment their arms wrapped around each other, the sound of 7 years of grief, rage, loss, and love poured out in a single embrace. Backstage, production assistants were crying. Hardened camera operators who'd seen everything turned away to wipe their eyes. Dr. Phil stood in the hallway, arms crossed, guarding that door like a sentinel. How long do we give them? A producer whispered. As long as they need. Dr. Phil's voice was absolute. This isn't about our schedule. This is about their healing. 23 minutes passed before the studio door opened. Sarah and Linda emerged, arms around each other, faces swollen from crying but smiles breaking through. Dr. Phil looked at them both. Ready to continue? Sarah nodded. But I want to say something on camera. About my father. Are you sure? You don't have to. I need to. Sarah's voice was steady now, fortified by truth and her mother's presence beside her. Other kids need to know. Other parents need to hear this. The crew reassembled. The cameras rolled. And Sarah Mitchell spoke her truth to millions. My father told me my mother abandoned me because he wanted to punish her for leaving him. He used me, his own daughter, as a weapon in a divorce. He stole 7 years of my life with my mother because his ego couldn't handle rejection. Dr. Phil leaned forward. That's parental alienation. It's a form of child abuse. And it's more common than most people realize. I want every kid watching this to know, if someone tells you your parent doesn't love you, doesn't want you, abandoned you, don't just believe it. Question it. Look for proof. Because I believed a lie for 7 years, and I lost 7 years with the most important person in my life. Linda squeezed her daughter's hand, unable to speak but present in every way that mattered. Dr. Phil addressed the camera directly, breaking the fourth wall completely. If you're watching this and you recognize yourself in this story, whether you're the alienated parent or the child being manipulated, I want you to know something. This pattern can be broken. This damage can be healed. It won't be easy. It won't be fast. But it can be done. He held up a card. We're putting resources on our website. Legal help for parents facing false allegations. Counseling services for children being alienated from parents. Support groups for families trying to reconnect. Because what happened to Sarah and Linda should never happen to anyone. The audience rose in a standing ovation. But this time, Dr. Phil didn't stop them. This time, he joined them. After the show, Dr. Phil did something else he'd never done. He gave Sarah and Linda his personal phone number. I don't do this often, he told them in his private office. But this journey isn't over. Reconnecting is just the first step. You've got years of relationship to rebuild. He handed Sarah a small card. That's my direct line. If you hit a wall, if you need help, you call. Understood? Sarah looked at the card like it was made of gold. Why are you doing this? Dr. Phil's answer revealed why he built his entire career on moments like this. Because 17 years ago, I started this show with one promise, to give people the tools they need to change their lives. Real change. He looked between mother and daughter. What your father did was evil. He weaponized love and stole time you can never get back. But he doesn't get to win. You two do. 3 months later, Dr. Phil received an envelope at his office. Inside was a photograph, Sarah and Linda at a restaurant, laughing over dinner. On the back, Sarah had written, Day 89 of making up for lost time. Thank you for stopping the show. Thank you for giving us our moment. Dr. Phil kept that photo on his desk. A reminder of why he did this work. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop talking and let healing happen. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. The segment became one of the most watched in Dr. Phil's history. Not because of drama, but because it showed something rare, genuine human connection. The moment when protocol matters less than people. Parental alienation support groups used the episode in their advocacy work. Thousands of estranged parents reached out, sharing their own stories of being blocked from their children. Because Sarah had found something more valuable than her father's approval. She'd found truth. Dr. Phil was asked repeatedly about the decision to clear the studio. His answer was simple. Some things matter more than making good TV. That mother and daughter needed a moment that belonged to them, not to ratings or producers. And if we'd kept rolling cameras, they wouldn't have had that. The legacy of that stop segment extended far beyond one family. Dr. Phil began incorporating pause moments into his show format, times when cameras pulled back, when privacy was respected, when healing was prioritized over content. But for Sarah and Linda Mitchell, it was simpler. It was the day someone believed them. The day someone stopped the noise and made space for truth. The day they got their family back. And it all started with 5 words. I wasn't told the whole truth. The manila envelope Sarah brought that day was donated to a family law education center, helping lawyers and judges recognize patterns of parental alienation. Linda framed one of her returned letters. Not to display. Just to have. A reminder that even when everything felt impossible, even when 7 years passed in silence, she'd never stopped being a mother. She'd never stopped trying. This is the power of truth. This is the impact of someone courageous enough to stop everything and do what's right. Years later, Sarah would appear on Dr. Phil again, not as a guest seeking help, but as an advocate helping others. She'd started a support network for teenagers being alienated from parents, using her story as proof that reconnection was possible. Dr. Phil gave me permission to question, she told the audience during her return appearance. When he stopped that show, when he cleared that studio, when he gave my mother and me space to just be, he was showing me that my healing mattered more than anything else. That example changed my life. Dr. Phil watched from backstage as Sarah spoke, and for once, the man who'd spent decades helping others needed a moment himself. Because this was why he'd started. Not for ratings. Not for fame. For this exact moment, watching someone he'd helped turn around and help others. Some television moments fade. This one became permanent. Because it taught a lesson that transcended entertainment. When you have the power to stop something wrong, you stop it. When you have the platform to elevate truth, you use it. When you have the ability to give someone their dignity back, you give it without hesitation. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can broadcast is the moment you stop broadcasting and let humanity happen off camera. That's not just good television. That's being human first. And in a medium often criticized for exploiting pain, Dr. Phil had shown that healing could be prioritized. That truth could be honored. That sometimes the right thing to do was break every rule, stop every camera, and remind two broken people that they deserve to be whole again. The manila envelope, the stopped show, the empty studio, and the 7 years of stolen time, all of it led to one beautiful reality, a mother and daughter who would never be separated again. And that truth, more than any television moment, would last forever.